Hey guys, it's Coach KJ here, and I am here with a superhero. Her name is Kelly Aldrich, and I was actually talking to one of the clients at my job, and she said, "You have got an amazing podcast. You have got to talk to Kelly Aldrich. She would be perfect for it." And I said, "Well, tell me a little bit more about it." And she said, "Well, Kelly has EDS, and she's a huge advocate." And as I started texting back and forth with Kelly, I said, "Tell me just a little bit about, EDS and some of the components and some of the other things that you are addressing." And, we'll do the mass interview on the during the podcast. I said, "But tell me a little bit more about it." And she started to talk about mast cell activation syndrome. So Kelly, can you tell me a little bit about it, what it looks like?
It actually was one of the things that started when I was really young, and we never did figure it out. I didn't figure it out until I was in my 50s. But what it is the doctor explained it to me. I have allergies, but it's not like an allergy that you have where they can do the blood test and say, oh, you're allergic to, this, that, whatever. Because technically, if you take an allergy test with mast cell, you might show up as having no allergies. But what I have are these buckets that hold histamine. And so like, if there's something I'm sensitive to, I'll eat that thing and it'll put a little histamine in my bucket. I eat it again. So basically I end up having a reaction every so often, not every time I encounter that thing. And what happens with me sometimes is if I have too many buckets full at one time that keep filling for some reason, I will actually get to the point where I have to wear a mask out in public. If someone were to walk up, like one time at work, a woman walked up to me. I'd asked her not to wear perfume in my office, and she didn't. And I started throwing up and had to go home. I mean, like the smell is that hard on me. It makes me break out in rashes. I can get gastrointestinal issues, brain fog, all sorts of stuff. And I think there's a lot of the doctors don't even know what it is. That's what's funny. It's really hard to find a doctor who understands mast cell activation. And I wish I had known about this my whole life, because I couldn't understand why walking down the cleaning aisle at the store was so hard for me. Just walking down the store's aisle, I would have trouble breathing, wheezing, breaking out in rashes. I just can't be around those kind of products. Or even in a candle store, heaven forbid, I can't even go on the sidewalk there.
In what store?
A candle store, or
Candle.
like Kirkland's, those fun home decor stores, can't go on those. The smells are too strong, and it makes it so I can't breathe. So
Wow.
mast cell is not fun.
So I just want to ask you really quickly, when you're talking about the bucket, so you had explained to me before, and you said sometimes you might eat, the first time you eat peanut butter, it doesn't impact you. The second time it doesn't impact you. The third time and then by the 10th time you feel the results of it. So if you're doing it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, how do you find out that it was the peanut butter that was originally causing it?
And that's the problem. So I know I have mast cell. I know there's things that I'm sensitive to, but I don't know I know chemicals are one of them because of the way I stop breathing. But as far as foods, to be honest, I don't know which ones are causing me problems. And that's why I have IBS, and I've had it since I was 18. I feel like maybe my IBS is mast cell, but I don't know for sure, because there's no doctors that there's not nobody's focusing on this, right? So like, I do have a mast cell doctor. He puts me on the meds, but there's no tests. I mean, there's some tests to check for mast cell, but they're also not very accurate because it depends on how full your bucket is, right?
Right. Yeah, so if you only have 5, they're going to say, "Oh no, she's not allergic," or "She was making that
Yeah.
up," or they won't really understand what the allergy is. So how does that impact you, or how did that impact you as a student in school? Because we're always talking about student readiness, and these, kids are more irritable or more agitated now. And I know that the foods that we eat have different combinations, or they're not like what my dad ate when he was on the farm. So
Mhm.
those chemicals could possibly impact students. So
Oh yeah.
I'm just wondering, from your standpoint, how do you think that impacted you as a student as far as learning, obtaining, retaining, and applying student lessons?
I mean, a lot of times, I mean, I was always sickly, and part of the mast cell and also the EDS and a couple other things I have had going on were that, the whole ball of things I had going on. I just feel like as a student, I was always sick. I couldn't
What does
participate in
sick
a
look
lot of
like? What,
sick,
what
like upset stomach. My knees were in pain. I'd cry a lot from pain. I I don't know, I just felt like I wasn't like everybody else out running around and having fun. I was more introverted. I think I was more introverted because of all the stuff going on with me, especially with the panic attacks. Mast cell can cause panic attacks. If your histamine's too high, it can actually show up like anxiety. And so I
And
feel
headache,
like, and headaches, and yeah,
confusion.
yeah. And I don't know that I had the confusion so much when I was a kid with the mast cell.
Mhm.
Um, but I did have the thing where I wouldn't go in certain places if there was strong smells, right?
Mm,
Um,
mm. And you know what? Today that could probably seem like you're being defiant. Do you know
oh
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah,
Everybody's
yeah,
going,
totally.
like, why isn't she going? Kelly's
Oh, please. Yeah, with mast cell, my friends, even my family, they'll be like, "Oh my God, just stop thinking about it. You'll be fine." And I'm like, "I can't breathe when you wear that cologne." My boyfriend will still, and I'll be on the other side of the house, and I'll be like, "Dude, I know you just put on cologne. I was choking on it in the kitchen." You know, I mean, like that's how sensitive I am. And people are like, you know, and
you're
I'm always like,
exaggerating.
"Yeah."
Drama.
Yeah, drama. Yeah,
Right.
I know. Or like, oh, my mom would be like, "Why? I'm so embarrassed. Why do you keep wearing that mask in public?" And I'm like, "Because I can't breathe if I get exposed to these things." And so, it's a struggle more as an adult because I think um, in childhood I thought that was normal because I didn't know, right? And nobody was, reinforcing that I wasn't doing well. They were just like, knock it off and, you know,
She's
so,
lazy.
yeah, whatever. Yeah. And so it wasn't until as an adult I realized, you know what, there was some serious gaslighting and borderline abuse, right?
Mhm,
I
mhm.
mean, so I don't know.
I was
It, yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I was reading that some of the things that actually cause the mast cell activation, like what causes it to stir up or flare up, because it's not 24/7, it flares up a period.
Yes.
Right. And I read that medication, stress, um, exercise,
Yeah.
exercise can cause it to flare
Yeah.
up.
And food, how old food is. So this is I don't know if you read this. So if you have really bad mast cell activation syndrome, you never buy like fresh meat. You have to buy frozen, and you have to thaw it right before you cook it. And you don't eat leftovers because as foods ages after it's cooked or after it's thawed, the histamines build up in that food. So that's the other thing. Like, okay, which if I go to a restaurant and have something to eat there, it could fill my bucket immediately. And I'm like running to the
Wow.
bathroom. Families always made a joke, ha ha ha, if we go out to eat, Kelly's going to be running to the bathroom. Yeah, it's real fun, right? Yeah. And my sister, she's just now starting to get something like that. And it might be mast cell, or IBS. She thinks it's IBS, but I don't know. But, and she's like, you just don't understand. And I was like, I do. I've had it my whole life.
Well, you know what the
And so,
one of the wonky things is that I was reading that it starts on average around age 9, right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what else is happening around age 9? Puberty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just imagine some of the confusion might be like, oh well, she's not active because she's, going through
Uh-huh.
menstruation, or he's not active because, blah 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 blah. And so therefore, mast cell activation could easily be misdiagnosed or,
Mm-hmm.
misunderstood. And if you don't have the prowess to explain, or if you
Yeah.
have not done the research to document what you're eating every single day, you know,
Yeah.
it can be a challenge. I have
I mean, the way this really nice doctor that I worked with told me you can find out about the foods is you only eat chicken and broccoli. That's it. No butter, no salt, no pepper, just chicken and broccoli for like a month, 6 weeks to a month to 6 weeks. And then after that, you bring on one food at a time. And that's how, because I guess those two foods are less likely to cause a mast cell flare, I guess.
can
Um,
you use any other meat besides chicken, or is it
no,
solely chicken?
for boiled chicken. Oh, I'm sorry, and some white rice. No seasoning, no butter, no nothing, just plain white. And I've had a friend who almost died from her mast cell. It got so bad, and she got down to 80 pounds, and that's all she was eating was the boiled chicken and broccoli um, and after, and she got pregnant shortly thereafter, which was like freaky because she had lost so much weight and was so unhealthy. But for some reason, after she had that baby, she felt better. And that's one other thing that we've noticed is with hormones. So like, and you're talking about when I was about 9, right?
Mhm.
Stuff starts ramping up. Well, when I hit menopause age, that's when things started changing again.
Better or
And
worse?
so, worse. But, you know, I also had a mold exposure which is what I think triggered my episode 7 years ago.
Is
Because something turned the
MOLD?
stuff on. Huh?
MOLD.
Because I have an allergy to it. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one thing I have tested positive for an allergy. That and when I ran my genetic tests, I found out that I'm also very sensitive to BPEs and that kind of stuff too. So I suspect that's why colognes and house cleaners and stuff are what get me, because they have those chemicals in them, and they also trigger my mast cell. But I think hormones have a lot to do with the mast cell process too. I could be wrong. I'm not a doctor, but
Right.
it seems to me like there is a connection.
Right. And well, when I was reading about it, also I found out that the not the cure, but you can manage it with antihistamines. Antihistamine
Yep.
1 would manage the allergies. Antihistamine 2 would manage the gastrointestinal system. So
Yeah.
those are 2 options too. And I
Yeah.
don't even know if people look into those. So I just want to ask one quick question because I want to save some great stuff for the interview.
Okay.
But the one quick question is, what type of doctor? Well, so what type of doctor did you go to finally have the proper diagnosis?
It has to be an allergist who is well versed with mast cell. And someone might tell you, someone told me about this one doctor, said he was a good mast cell doctor. Wasn't. He just tried doing regular allergy tests. There's only, I'll be honest, I think there's only a handful in the country. I went to an EDS conference, and that's where I found references to some good doctors. I found one 3 hours from me, and that's who I was seeing.
Tell us what EDS is really quickly.
Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's a connective tissue disorder, and you have it from birth. Not everybody. It makes you bendy, so it's you're hypermobile with Ehlers-Danlos. But there's about 7 versions or more. They're still mapping those genes, so there really aren't any. They're starting to get better genetic testing for this. But I mean, so when the doctors say, "Oh, you're just bendy," it's not always just you're bendy. It could be a lot more, but it could be that you're just bendy. But your connective tissue is not good.
And can you test for this prenatal? I mean,
No, I don't know. I'll be honest, it was up until it's just, we're right on the edge where they're starting to map these genes for Ehlers-Danlos. They've had, I think, 2 versions mapped when I was first looking into all this about 7 years ago. And now I think they're up to 4 or 5 that are mapped. So these genes are still being figured out. So I actually had some genes that haven't been attached to mapping yet, but were showing up in people with EDS. And that got me into a doctor who said, yeah, you've got all this stuff.
Mhm.
So it was that kind of a diagnosis. It was just the DNA helped me find the right doctors.
Excellent, excellent. And the opportunity to test the DNA to get to the
Yes.
right doctors and that kind of stuff. Let me ask you this before we end. Can you just give me like some symptoms that if people see this, they should probably look into more than just a generalized diagnosis of, chronic fatigue syndrome or depression? Because mast cell activation syndrome is sometimes diagnosed as depression, is sometimes diagnosed as chronic fatigue, and is sometimes diagnosed as fibromyalgia. And for the layperson, they may say, well, they're just being lazy or clumsy or something like that.
Yeah.
So what are some symptoms that if people see this, you say, hey, look, those are red lights, ask your doctor about this?
Well, I mean, like, if you do notice, like, if you go to a restaurant maybe and you get the gastro stuff more, that might not be just IBS. If you think you have IBS, I think you maybe need to just consider that maybe it's mast cell, and start looking at, like, do you get skin irritations as well? Do you have difficulty breathing if you're in certain situations? But really what got me to the mast cell diagnosis was when I got the EDS diagnosis. There's an umbrella of things that a lot of these people have. And I started, do I have this? Do I have this? And that's how I started finding out, yeah, that's what that is. So it's real hard, really.
And what if they have a reaction to wheat or sugar? Or is that just you, or is that most people who have mast cell?
I mean, that could just be me, but a lot of my friends in my support group try to avoid those foods, and it does make a difference when they do, because I think that food has a lot to do with how we feel. It could just be that, right? But I think so. But I think chemicals probably affect me more than food.
Excellent. Wow. Well, listen, Kelly, I can't wait to hear the story,
Yes.
the journey, and the success and the different things that you're doing, and even hear about your EDS support group during our interview this Sunday on the Moving
Yay.
podcast at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, Kelly, once again, thank you for giving us a little peek window into mast cell activation syndrome and EDS.
Okay. Thanks.
And thank you for being a hero and a champion, because your story is going to give some people hope. It's
Yep.
going to give teachers insight, doctors insight, and so many more who are trying to help individuals be ready, be engaged, and just be the best that they can be. So I thank you now, and I thank you in advance for what you're going to do on Sunday.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right.